Welcome again with another episode of the Mini PC Show, Big Talk, Little Machines. And this episode is brought to you by Yuki Treats. That's right, folks. Yuki Treats. That's UKYTREATS.
Is that dog food or something? What is that?
No, he's just a long-time Patreon guy who's always tried to help Podnutz out in a lot of different ways. I
just want to make sure people didn't think we're commercially sponsored.
No, I think it's actually something like maybe British related, UK, and then treats something.
Something.
Well, thank you for making it all possible for us.
Absolutely.
So how is everything going, Brian?
I think I've been bit by the bug. I've been bit by the
atomic pie bug.
Yeah, the atomic pie bug and the hat bug. I've been like, I don't know why. I've just been in this mode of network attached storage. Everything is network attached storage. I want to take every machine and turn it into a NAS.
Like, didn't I give you an orange pie with a NAS board?
You did, and that's worked out great, but it's never enough. It's never enough, and I already have. I have like 3 of them in my house. I don't need it. Well, you can never have enough, I guess. I think they're so cool. I really do.
So what I've been thinking about doing or threatening to do and haven't done yet is with all of the devices I have that do 1 gig of, gigabyte Ethernet with USB 3 on them, is set up a Ceph cluster for storage and just test it out, see how that works. And I would need 3 devices for the minimum cluster size.
Well, that's one of the, I'd say, good, bad, double-edged swords is we all in this universe always seem to have extra boards sitting around that we could purpose for nearly anything that we could, think of. So I'm sure, either multiple Raspberry Pi Zeros or an Orange Pi o-droid and something else is always just ready to be spun up.
Yeah, for a while I only had what I was running, like what was in production in my environment. And now I have extra things to, test things out with, which I really appreciate because it makes things very cool that if I think of it, I can do it.
Gotcha. And the one thing I'll say about a NAS is I think we're going to need to come up with more terms because I don't think we have enough terms because to me, there's really at least 2 separate classes of NAS devices. There's the almost like the Amazon Glacier-esque. As long as it's there, as long as it's running, I don't need anything spectacular. I don't need anything high performance. And then we have the other class of NAS where we really do intend on housing multimedia files, stream high quality video to multiple different types of places all at the same time, which would really be, 2 completely types of hardware classes, and like even the actual drives where you could get like the classic 5200 RPM spinning disk and the slow one, where in the fast one you really do want something a little bit better than that.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And that's something I'd like to try out. I think it'd be fun to test setting up something like Ceph and putting a Plex server on top of that and using the Ceph for the storage. I think that would be interesting to give it a try.
Now, when you say Ceph, what do you mean by that, Rich? I don't want to assume.
All right, so Ceph is an open source storage system. And there is an ARM library for it. You can find it on GitHub. It's CEPH. That's Charlie Echo Papa Hotel. And it works Intel or ARM. And it's just a method of block storage.
Gotcha.
So here's what my question is, Rich. Okay, network. Here's the thing. Whenever, like, okay. This is one of the things I had a hard time understanding when I first started computing stuff. It doesn't matter what format the hard drive is in. It can be in
SCSI,
NFS.
SATA.
Well, no.
Oh,
I'm thinking it
the
can be
service.
right. It can be an ext4,
Mhm.
Apple format, NFS or whatever. It doesn't matter. Once the drive is accessible over the network, then there's a separate network protocol that has like a formatting onto it, whether it be Samba or something like
Right.
that. So when you say Ceph, is it the way it's handled over the network, or is it the way that the disks communicate with each other, like RAID, or I don't know?
Yeah, so Ceph is like RAID, and with the Ceph, you could do Samba or NFS on top of it. So the connection protocol would be one of those.
Okay, and I will have a link in the notes to it. Yeah, I just pulled it back out of our old
Out of our
links
archive.
from previous weeks, and it does look like it is like it especially formed, at least this version, for the Raspberry Pi itself. Which, why not?
And that's what. So here's the problem. If you say you're experienced, and I'm not trying to say I'm super experienced or anything, if your go-to is not the Raspberry Pi and you're looking for something in the ARM world, definitely use Raspberry Pi and the search term like Ceph or something else, and you'll find things much easier. So even if you're looking for it for, a Rock 64, a Rock Pro, whatever it may be, but if you start searching for Raspberry Pi in Ceph or Raspberry Pi in Docker, you're going to find it's a lot easier to turn up that information, even if your target device isn't a Raspberry Pi.
Well, and I'll say, looking at the page, it does list basically normal Debian stable installation. So it wouldn't shock me on other ARM devices this will work as well. A lot of stuff built for Debian seems to be of a more generic fashion, so it might be worth a try.
Yep. Oh yeah, definitely. And that's another good thing is if you're wanting to do something on an ARM-based system and you're running an Debian, however you want to say it, OS, you could just search Debian and Docker or Debian and Ceph and find it.
Gotcha. Let me change the camera around for the video watcher. I did get my Raspberry Pi in. I did get my power plug in and all that kind of stuff. It's basically just a wall wart with a jack, a barrel jack on it, and then on the other side of the barrel jack, there's another.
You said Raspberry Pi. You mean Atomic Pi?
Atomic Pi, yeah. And then on the other side is two. I believe you called it, Rich, solid strand cables.
Okay, yeah, they're either multi-strand
core
or solid core.
Yeah. These are obviously, I'll say, solid core cables. So, like, these things are very stiff. You're not fraying them. You're not coming out at all. And then you need the DuPont cables to connect to the board itself. So I bought this cluster of cables. These are not solid core cables. I've cracked open like 4 or 5 of these. None of these are solid core cables. So I'm literally like, I don't want to say scared, because that's a little bit too strong of a word. I'm hesitant to damage my board by using one of these, and I don't know if I'm just being
No, you can use them.
Okay, then I'll say this: I trust you on saying that, so I will give it a try to connect it. But also, as of today, if you go on Ameridroid, which I do not believe I bookmarked, if you go on a Ameridroid, you can pre-purchase, you can pre-order the Atomic Pi or one of the boards now, and it will ship here in like 2 weeks.
Or so go to Amazon.
Amazon, I could never find just separately buying one of the daughter boards itself. It was only the main board.
And I gotta say, props out to Ameridroid, because they have really good shipping prices, and they're in the U.S. They're, I think, in California, and they'll get the stuff out to you pretty quick.
Yeah, and what I'll say about them is I think they understand as a U.S. based company, it's easy for anybody to offer anything in the physical world. The difference maker, if this was a Mentos commercial, the difference maker kind of thing would be customer service. And honestly, I firmly believe that I've gotten exemplary is the word I'll use, customer service from them in the past. So I have no problem spending my money with them.
I called them once and they were super nice. They're like really decent people. I did look them up on Google Street View. It seems like it's a little shop, and I I'm hypothetically saying this that it's like a mom and pop. I don't know. They could have 100 people in there. I don't know, but I think it's a small family owned type thing. But they definitely do a good job.
I think that's it adds a special touch to the way they deal with you. My wife is always saying that because I'm always looking for a bank that will, do mobile payments and things like that. She's like, no, you
Hmm.
want a bank that's more local with that special touch to it.
And
Not
that's
the big people.
unfortunate. Yeah, yeah, because there's a couple of things I missed. I was born in '65, so I remember the '70s, and there were all sorts of, there was the Bank of East Islip, the Bank of whatever, and my dad knew the bank manager. There
Yeah.
there was no, there were no, I would say, FU fees. Like, and I'll miss transferring money from one account to another, and I'll get a $35 overage, fee, because overdraft fee. It's like, really, I had the money in the other account. I'm like, you got to do that. Meanwhile, the bank would call my dad up. Hey, Bill, you're gonna go short. I got something here that's gonna pay out today. You need to transfer funds. You want us to do that for you? It's like, yeah.
That's awesome.
But that doesn't happen anymore. The
No.
same thing like a regular butcher shop, like a local butcher with all sorts of, family style things. We don't get that anymore.
Well, it seems like Ameridroid is actually doing that. So kudos to them.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
I've only had good experiences with them, so I'm happy with them.
and they are the official U.S. distribution site for more than a couple pieces of hardware, is what I'll say. They're never far behind when something comes out and it's available. Sometimes you got to wait a couple days. Sometimes you got to wait maybe a week or so, but they always seem to have whatever we talk about available. And they're always fair priced. Where most of the time, if you choose not to buy from them and you buy from somebody else, after shipping and everything, you end up paying more money.
So, Dor, when I ordered my Atomic Pi, I did not order the power supply, and you're saying I can purchase the correct power supply from Ameridroid that will uh, I be able to use with the Atomic Pi.
I put the link there in our in our notes. It looks like what they're selling is like what I have right now, where it's just the barrel connectors. You're still going to have to get the Dolby cables yourself and connect it up if this picture is in fact right. Or you can buy the they call it on here the baby breakout board, $3.95. Now, if I'm not mistaken, just looking at the numbers, and I'm not an electricity guy, which is really sounding incompetent, but if you look at the numbers on the power needs, you should be able to basically take a USB cable, cut it, and use the red and the black cable from inside of there and connect it to the board and power it as well. But I don't know if I trust that.
Yep. Yeah. Because it's 5 volts on the USB. They're saying 2.4 amps, and you should be able to source that from just about anything.
I have a couple of old power supplies kicking around.
Like if you had a phone charger, it should work.
Okay, I was thinking like from an old machine, like a 250-watt power supply or something like that.
Yeah, that's way overkill.
Yeah. No.
Yeah, on the phone charger thing, I'll say if you go even 2 or 3 years old in the phone charger, I would be careful. The older tablet chargers seem to be more stringent on giving you the power more consistently with a higher amperage. Where phone chargers from even 3 years ago or so didn't seem to be as quality, is what I'll say.
So underpowering it, I heard, is just as bad as overpowering it.
It might not boot. I don't know what else it'll do bad, but it could.
Yeah, well, I'll say there's only one way to find out, and only being $35. Technically, if you damage it, it's a good steak dinner, and that's about it.
So do you guys have use cases for your Atomic Pies already?
Well, it's funny. All right, so I ordered an Atomic Pi and power supply on Amazon because I think you mentioned they were available again. They go in and out on Amazon as far as availability, and mine will be here Wednesday. Except I didn't plan. Let's see, Tuesday, Wednesday next week.
Yeah, Wednesday. Yeah.
So I'm only going to be in Orlando on Thursday, and I had it shipped here because I was planning. Actually, I didn't plan it on coming that early. That's what it was. But I guess for lunch, I'll drive by here, pick it up, and this way I have it to play with over the weekend. But yeah, I tried loading F-Sense onto my up board, not the up squared, and I couldn't get it to load right. And I might just I think I have to hit the I for install, and I was just trying to boot off the USB media. But this would be a cool thing, like I originally said, to use as a PF-Sense. It runs Intel. There's a bunch of other things you can do Intel-wise. It has USB 3 on it, so you could use, if you want to do something like a router with PF-Sense, or Brian, you mentioned Untangled, that you could plug a USB 3 to gigabit Ethernet dongle in and basically use it as a router or other such type device.
Well, I'll just say Brian shared a link earlier that I don't have handy, where people were talking about having some selective issues with running certain USB 3 things on it, and I think it's strictly a power type thing.
Yeah, I would expect that, because I forget what the power spec on USB 3 is, but when they say 2.4 amps on a power supply, that's not enough to power that board. And something like, if you're going to be doing a laptop drive on USB 3, if you're going to be doing something on USB 3 that just requires data and not power, it'll work. But if you're going to be spinning a physical disk, yeah, you're probably going to need more power to source through there.
Yeah, and I'll say I have a tempted use case, is what I'm going to say. Nothing's written in stone yet, because the likelihood of me being successful without extreme help is low. And I said all that to lead up to this. Yeah, if you guys haven't heard of the 1UP arcade cabinets, they were around $299, I want to say, was the normal price for them. My dad saw in Walmart a return model of the Tempest one, Tempest, Asteroids, Lunar Lander, and something else for $120. And he picked it up, and it's sitting in the garage, still in the box. And the logic is I put it together with help, because if I don't have help, it will not be put together right. Get it to work. It's working. Then when it's working, then I open it up, take their board out, put the Atomic Pi
Retro?
in it.
Oh,
And because it's an Intel based one, the logic is I should be able to run any and everything from arcade, basically any arcade game in existence, old Atari, NES, Super NES, PlayStation 1, Nintendo 64, maybe PlayStation 2. But I'm also going to have to mod the deck of the cabinet, because it only has the dial, like the old Atari Breakout, or a Arachnoid spinning wheel,
right.
and a couple buttons, because Asteroids back in the day only had 4 physical buttons: spin left, spin right, fire, and thrust. There was no joystick. So I'm gonna have to
and hyperspace.
right. So I'm gonna have to mod the deck of the cabinet and add a joystick as well. So it's gonna have to take a lot of things to go right for me to use the Atomic Pi how I would like to use it. Otherwise, I'm not sure. I will say because it's Intel based, the world is open to possibilities. I mean, it's Intel.
Ah, very cool. I like that idea. That's a very good use, because I was thinking you were just going to do a MAME, Raspberry Pi type thing.
Well, it honestly, primarily, I could see doing mostly arcade type gaming on it. And then some old school NES type thing. Atari had some games that I still think I consider fun, but really it's the kind of thing. And I don't want to leave it in the garage because the garage is not insulated, so I'd have to put make room for it in here. But one of my beliefs is I put it together in the garage with those kinds of things. Every time you move it, even 1 inch, you are literally taking life off of it because it's not built to be moved a lot. So I can see buying like a cheap hand truck also to move this thing around, but then of course to have it for later projects as well.
Yeah, if it's like particle board and stuff like that, screws and glue are your friend.
Gotcha. Do you have any ideas of what you would use it for, Brian?
I do not actually. You know what? This was such a good buy that I couldn't resist on picking it up, and I'm gonna find a use for it. I was thinking something on the lines of connecting it to my scanner, so I can actually place my scanner up upstairs and get into the habit of scanning receipts and documents and mail and things like that right when we open them up or right when we come into the house, or versus bringing them to a separate place and then losing track of them and I have to go back and scan it, and maybe like set up rsync so once I scan it, it syncs automatically to my backups drives within the house. But something like that a Raspberry Pi could do. So I really don't want to limit this little box here. But that was the first thing that I thought of when I was looking at it.
So what is the killer app? And let's just put the parameters on it that the killer app would not be ARM based. It would be something you can only do with Intel.
Yeah.
So pfSense is one of them. I already got that out there.
So there's Sophos. I know Sophos is x86. It supports x86 and not ARM, and that's a similar what do you call it, like a firewall in a box, or I'm losing my terminology as I'm trying to think of the search for the words, but it's very similar to pfSense, and I actually enjoyed using that when I had it set up on my machine, but I couldn't find something beefy enough to run it on, so that would be a good choice.
And I guess the wild card is, hey, anything that you can't do on a Raspberry Pi on an ARM-based machine, that there's only source code for in the Intel world.
Right.
So one of the things I was kind of thinking of is how Redneck Engineered could I get with a cluster for VMware? How many disparate pieces of hardware could I stitch together and do some sort of clustering in VMware? Because right now my home lab is running on an i5 Gen 6 NUC and a Celeron Gen 6 NUC. And the Celeron NUC is running Open Media Vault, and it's booting off an SD card. So I was like, how much can I repurpose stuff and have it run and actually have it useful in a lab setting?
Gotcha. There was a link I found last week that's want to share it to Brian. Right now, it's 9:26 in the notes. Unison. I have to say, there's nothing wrong with rsync. There's nothing ever wrong with rsync. Everything in the world that does synchronization or backup has at least some rsync in it. But this seemed like a really useful tool that you can run on either OS X, Unix-based systems, or Windows. And basically, it's a more, I don't know what the word I would use is, comprehensible version of rsync, where you can have either one-way syncs, bidirectional syncs, and it does handle conflicts. It does have built-in things to handle if the file gets updated on both sides. It'll basically keep backups of them and allow you to pick which one is the real one. I haven't had a chance to play with it yet, but it definitely looked to me like one of those things that could be one of those diamonds in the rough that a lot of people don't really know about.
Nice. Good find, Dor. I'd never even heard of this before. How'd you end up stumbling on that?
Oh, it wasn't me. One of my buddies asked about, what would I do to basically mirror the entirety of a computer to another computer without having to do backups, just have it be automatic kind of thing. And we were going through different routines, different things that would cause issues, cause errors, cause hiccups, cause it to break. We had to, set certain parameters, like you had to do it the split second you set up the first computer, or else it'd be really hard to get it to catch up. And then we found this kind of thing. And what we determined was if you set it up right in the very beginning, if you only install things via the command line, then basically using a tool like this, you could very easily have very certain folders, very certain files automatically sent to the secondary computer. And then on the secondary computer, you can have the bash history being parsed. And anytime it sees a install command, it can then pull it out and run it itself, kind of thing, with a little script that we found to keep two machines completely, in air quotes, synchronized. And this was the tool that we both thought, after looking at it, would be the least likely to break over time. Because rsync, it works great, but when it breaks, it very quietly breaks, and you have to go look, and then you find out that it hasn't been working for 1 day, 3 days kind of things. Where this, it at least looked like it was easier to monitor.
Oh, wow. Extremely fancy.
Well, to me, this is the mix. This is a good mix of simplicity for you to use, but complexity on what it can do. And for me, it's really hard to find software that is simple to use with good functionality, but yet can do a lot on the back end and doesn't, break every time that you just breathe on it.
Just another reason why I really love this show. Thanks, Dor. I appreciate it, man.
Never a problem. And if you guys out there know how to keep complete systems synced without having to do backups or really fine-grained rsyncs between two computers, don't hesitate to let us know. Because there's always, the best thing about anything in the computing world is there's always another way you can do it. There's never one perfect way. Yeah, and there was on line 916, Brian. I think you were the one that first put this in our notes. It was another NAS type board and this was nothing more than a hat. And you said that we should do like a hat show, and I'm not going to say we shouldn't, but I will say we'll need to get more hands on with this kind of stuff, because this is kind of board I think could really shine. It's specifically made for the Nano Pi, and it's a DIY NAS hat with 4 SATA ports built right on it. And I gotta say, I love the idea of it. The only thing that worries me is it looks like it needs a normal 12 volt plugged into it, which to me says you probably need like a completely separate power supply for it.
Yeah, that's kind of why I mentioned that 250-watt power supply that I had. So my intention was to have multiple SBCs in a PC case or a custom chassis with a low wattage power supply, and it's more than enough power to feed a handful of SBCs. But this, like you said, this board in particular, it either accepts a barrel connector for power, or you can use the pinout, and it has the Molex to feed your SATA drives. Now, what really geeked me out about this was that you can do 4 drives. I was really like pieing over the Rock Pro 64 metal box desktop NAS casing, and that was just really cool. I mean, they thought of everything, put it in a package, and said, you can order this and put it together yourself. And I really enjoyed that, but it was only 2 drives. Nothing wrong with that whatsoever. But if you can get more drives, why not? And when I saw this hat, I'm like, you know what? There's little difference between the NanoPi M4 and the Rock Pro 64. They both have the same RK3399 chips. And let's see what this thing can do. So I've been searching on the interwebs and trying to figure out what kind of case I can put it in, what kind of custom case I can put in, if I can make my own, or if I could, like I said, put it in a PC case, or if I can ask a friend of mine to 3D print one for me. So that's kind of where I am right now. I'm kind of scraping some coins together to to order this thing. But you and I, Rich, were having a conversation a little while ago about whether 2 gigabytes of storage was enough for network attached storage, or 2 gigabytes of RAM was enough. So what's your thought on that?
Okay, so if we're talking in the SBC world and we're limited to gigabit Ethernet, yes. As long as you find the appropriate operating system for the device, that is not a bloated operating system that's trying to do too many things, you shouldn't have any problem with 2 gig. But if you're talking, you're going to be multi-user, you're going to be 10 gigabit, or you're going to be bonded 10 gigabits and have like 20 gigabit Ethernet in there, then you're going to have some collision and you're going to need some caching area. But for a single board computer application and home use, 2 gig's fine.
I gotcha. All right. I agree.
And honestly, I didn't realize, Brian, it could use either the barrel jack or the 12 volt in. If it can use either or, then I'm feeling tons better about this board. And as long as and here's my logic, as long as the pinout on the NanoPi M4 is a Raspberry Pi compatible pinout, I would expect none of this hardware to be that specifically like special, that it really would only work with that one board. Because of course in this posting they try to insinuate it will only work with the NanoPi M4. I will say 4 drives have to be better just for redundancy. You could literally have 2 of the drives mirroring 2 other drives, and then even if one goes out, you have no problem at all.
Yeah, you're right. I didn't even consider that. So I'm wondering if that would even work on the Rock 64. Well, I know that the the chip's a little different, but the pinout might be the same.
Well, yeah, as long as the Raspberry Pi pinout is the same, and there's no special drivers needed for the hardware, which I would be kind of shocked if there is. I really would honestly expect it to work. Now, it might not work perfectly. There might be, it might be like 10% slower or something, but I would still be fine with that. And I've got to say it again, the NanoPi M4 heatsink, I think is still one of the coolest heat sinks I've seen on any of these mini computers.
Yeah, that thing has some girth to it. It's pretty beefy.
Yeah, in case of a apocalypse, you can use it as a weapon.
Yeah, but thanks for bringing that up, Dor, because that was really kind of figuring out how I was going to make that work. And we know another thing I thought was kind of cool too was a SBC hardware firewall. So in this chassis, or where we have multiple SBCs with specific tasks and specific purposes, you would also have like a Banana Pi or the Espresso Bin SBC board, where it's specifically made for a custom router, and you can throw something like pfSense on it, or just something that does firewall statements for you, so you can actually put a hardware firewall within the box itself, and you can pretty much connect it anywhere, and you can filter out your traffic. I just thought that was a pretty good idea.
Okay, who's it? I forgot where somebody said this to me, and what they were talking about. So I have the data center in a drawer, which is now a data center in a cabinet. They said, well, why don't you just take an old PC, pull the motherboard out, use the power supply, and just put your, Pi data center in an old PC case. I'm like, that's freaking brilliant. Sometimes people come up with things, and I'm like, really? I didn't think of that? That's so easy.
Yeah, I saw someone online do a 4U rack mounted PC case, where inside the rack they had multiple boards, and it looked really sweet, just racked in their data rack. Very neat, out of the way. You didn't even notice what was in there until you obviously pulled the panel open and took a peek. But pretty much everything that he needed was in that little chassis.
Well, you know what I'd be inclined to do? In fact, I'm thinking about it now. I have it's a small desktop, and it was a Vista machine. I could pull the motherboard out of that, use the power supply, and I could power all my Pi devices, and it's got ventilation, etc. Heck, if I was smart, I could actually wire some of the USB ports up into it.
I can hear those gears turning.
Yeah, that can definitely work. Another link that I bookmarked, and when I bookmarked it, I'm not going to lie, I had to read it a couple times. Line 906 in our notes, and it's called Princeton IoT in Spectre. The only way I can put it is, if you're watching a sporting event and you take a picture and you try to explain to someone the entirety of the game with that picture, you're never going to have enough information. If you just take a snapshot of your network and you look at the activity, you're never going to be 100% positive and sure that everything on your network is a completely above board, completely safe, as you intended, and working as you see fit. What this is, it's basically an operating system you can install on Mac OS X or Linux or a Raspberry Pi itself. So you can have a dedicated Raspberry Pi on your network, doing nothing more than basically sniffing the entirety of your network and making sure that all the IoT things are quote unquote behaving. This is the kind of thing I firmly believe, even if you have no Raspberry Pis, even if you have no Rock 64s, even if you have no Orange Pi devices, even if you have no Asus Tinkerboards or whatever, you should get an old laptop, load Linux, or go buy a Raspberry Pi, install this thing on it. Because if you have an Amazon Echo, if you have a Google Home Hub Max, if you have a Nest this, if you have a Wired that, if you have a video doorbell this, if you have any of these kinds of devices on your network, even if it's your refrigerator or your television, and you want to keep your eye on it, this is the kind of thing that actively stays updated and analyzes your network for threats that basically can come from these IoT devices. And in my personal opinion, these threats are not going to get any better anytime soon. Maybe in 5 years they'll be better, but not now.
Dude, I'm anxious to get off the podcast now.
Yeah, this is pretty flippin' awesome. It really is, man. What a great app. Wow.
Yeah, and I'm not going to lie, I'm slightly afraid to put it on my network because it's going to tell me stuff I probably might not like, but it's the kind of thing I think it's, we as not only enthusiasts, but we as home network administrators, dare I say, we kind of owe it to ourselves. Even if you're a bachelor and live by yourself and you're still an administrator of a network where you do not have intimate knowledge of everything that's running on it, even if it's your light bulb or something, your router can be compromised, your light bulbs can be compromised, a bunch of different things can be compromised on your network to be used as denial of like service devices, send out spam email kind of devices, all kinds of things. So I just think this is a good idea to at least play with.
Oh, I'm boy, if I can stay awake long enough, I'm gonna load this as soon as we get off.
Yeah, and I was happy I saw that it actually had some media coverage on Gizmodo, TechCrunch, 9 to 5 Mac, and CBC News. I believe CBC is Canadian Broadcasting Company.
Sounds right.
And I will say this: I listen to 24 plus hours of spoken word audio a day. More than a couple news sources from all over the world.
That takes you what, 6.5 hours to do?
About 8 or so. Maybe a little bit less. And I will say I'm genuinely shocked sometimes at the things I hear on CBC News as being utterly relevant to American audiences, and yet I don't hear any of the American media covering it. So it isn't a bad news source at all. But of course, you're going to have to listen to some hockey, eh?
So one thing that was in the news just recently for the state of Washington, not the state of Washington, it was Washington, D.C., the city of Washington. I believe they fell victim to ransomware.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And
Baltimore. That was Baltimore.
Was it Baltimore?
I think another... I think another state did. I think Baltimore did in the past, and just recently.
No, Baltimore
Washington
was
State did.
Baltimore was like 4 days ago, where basically the entire city government was closed.
Man,
the only thing that was working was payroll, and I think one or two other things.
I don't understand that Baltimore government is fantastic.
Well, and in typical fashion, they didn't have any disaster recovery, if the papers are reported correctly, and they were only asking for, I think it was $70,000.
Yeah, something minimal.
Write the check.
And instead of paying it, they decided, no, we're going to basically build everything back from scratch.
Stand their ground. I mean, I wouldn't pay it either.
Well, so here's the question. I agree with the concept of not paying it. But do you know what? If somebody hacked either the company I'm at or my home, go F yourself. Do it now. You know what? Don't wait the 72 hours for the ransom. Do it now. Because I got a backup of everything. Likewise, same thing at work. There's a backup of everything. There's a DR plan. We not only is the data center for my work hardened with its own generator, with Category 5 hurricane glass everywhere. We have a DR site also. So if a giant sinkhole opened up and took the entire campus with it, we would still be up and running. So, yeah, but look, if you're a government-run agency employing government-type people that don't know what they're doing, and I'm sorry if anybody works for the government. I'm not making fun of you. And I'm not looking at you, Dor, either. I'm not.
Well, I have good news for you, Rich. I know for a fact that my agency did get a ransomware type infection. But we actually caught it while it was still in
archiving,
in encrypting files. One guy took it upon himself to instantly trace where it was coming from, instantly kill the executable, and then completely disconnect the computers that were infected.
Excellent.
And the only things that got infected, he was able to securely delete and restore in less than 4 hours. So nobody who worked there was really aware that anything happened. And as far as I know, none of the other employees even know we got ransomwared. I only knew about it because he told me, because he was the guy that did it. So it is possible for governments to do these kinds of things correctly. But it is a diligence kind of thing. You have to be aware of what can happen and aware of what to look for, and be responsive, and have your nose to the grindstone. So when these tickets come in with people saying they can't do things, you don't just brush them off as the end users are stupid. You actually follow up and, do good work.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Wow, what a good story. You don't hear that well.
Good.
Not that would be in the news, but that's a really good story.
Oh, my number one and only goal. Well, I have two goals as a government employee. One, take the taxpayer dollar and try to convert it into $5. Try to give them more than what they're putting into it. But secondarily, only by a very slight touch, make sure we're never on the nightly news.
Mm-hmm.
Because that won't end well for anybody. And I don't know about you guys, but I do like getting paid for my job.
Yeah.
Yes. Definitely love the paycheck.
So I got one more here that I thought was really interesting. Google I/O happened about a week ago. More than a couple people were like screaming, crying, upset because there were changes coming to the Google Home Nest, whatever, the thermometer, the thermostat thing, where certain things are going to be disconnected from it to be used anymore. Line 918 in the notes. It basically is how you can do your own custom Raspberry Pi Zero connected open hab thermostat. So you can have similar type functionality where a Nest, I believe, is over like $140-$50 kind of thing. They are launching one completely put together. It looks like for $145, but of course, in typical fashion, if you want, you can build it yourself, kind of thing. Part of me likes the idea of having a custom thermostat. Part of me likes the idea of, let's not mess with it, just turn the damn thing on and walk away.
Well, so one of my goals would be, and I was never pro Nest, because I understand it phones home, and Google acquired them, and Google, in its typical fashion, has a firing squad that needs to be fed, and they kill. It's amazing what they kill, and there is a theory in management to fail and fail often. And I'm sorry, fail and fail early. I said that wrong. In other words, determine what isn't going to be successful and switch lanes. get out of there as quick as you can. So the problem with all of this stuff, one, I've said it many times on many different podcasts. If you don't have root, you don't own it. So that Nest thing on your wall is now a wall wart. Not exactly. It still does all the local functions, but it has no cloud connection at some time in the future. And that's my big beef with cloud connected devices is it relies on the cloud for some functionality. If you roll your own, even if you're going to pay $145 for it, if you roll your own and have the source code to it, you own the entire thing. And that's what I think is great about that. And two things I've been thinking about doing is some sort of doorbell, ring type doorbell. And the other thing is a smart thermostat. I live in Florida, so much 360 days a year I'm using air conditioning. There's a couple of days a year where we turn on the heat. And if I had a thermostat that knew my geographical position, and if there's a certain route I take to go home, and that route starts like 5 miles out or more, it could start turning on the air conditioning, or let Google know, or let my home automation assistant know that I am heading home, own tracks or something like that, and it could start cooling my house down for when I get there. So that's something cool. That's one of the things I'd like to do is the thermostat do presence detection, know people are there, and have the temperature reasonable. And also, one of the things the thermostat doesn't do is humidity, because it may be cool enough in the house, but it may be god awful to run the air conditioner to some of that humidity out, so it's actually livable. And so if I could add a humidity sensor, presence detection, I would be all crazy about doing my own thermostat.
Well, if you scroll down on this one at linuxgizmo.com, it does say you can buy the kit for $95. And I was like, I'm wondering what would make it cost even $95. Well, the next to last paragraph, I believe it says, Make Open Stuff has so far prototyped a wireless central sensor modules for carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, other gases, dust, smoke,
cool.
temperature, relative humidity, wind speed, direction, water level, water leak, proximity, PIR motion, magnetic contacts. They're also looking at doing standard relays, power relays, electric motors, water pumps, sirens, lights, RGB strips. So I'll say this. If the company is successful with this crowdfunding campaign, which I try not to bring too many crowdfunding campaigns, if they are successful, this will be like the hub. This will be like the central part to a broader set of hardware. And the reading I did on it, it did make it sound like you will have the option to connect it to their servers, but it wasn't a mandatory kind of thing for any functionality.
I wonder if this supports the Mycroft with the other speaker there.
Well,
The
I'll say
open
this.
source speaker.
I believe it said it would. I thought it said it would connect with OpenHab. If it does connect with OpenHab, I would be shocked if Mycroft wouldn't have OpenHab type, connectivity. Yeah. OpenHab 2.0 is one of the most popular length compatible open source smart home IoT frameworks available, and it supports standards like MQTT. So you should be able to integrate it even with Amazon, Alexa, and stuff like that.
Yeah, I found this to be extremely awesome, actually. And when I when you first shared the link with me, Dor, I saw the same paragraph that you did. And I was really geeked out about that. But then I started to wonder. So what separates this particular model from the other implementations that are already out there? So right now you can actually roll your own thermostat as it is. So what separates this one from the others? What do you think?
See, that's where I'm not sure. I mean, the only thing I can think of is the promise that they're going to keep implementing more hardware so you can have more sensors that work together. I can't picture their hardware being spectacularly different than anyone else's. So I'm not sure what the what you know, because to me it's nearly a premium price to pay. So I'm not really sure where they're promising those like premium type features, but I'll just say I like people doing these kind of things just for like competition's sakes and just to get people to see what can be done. Because in relative terms, what I would really like is for people to put these kinds of things out and then someone else to say, I made a virtually identical thing and it cost me $40.
Yeah, that's true. Well, they are making some money on their fundraiser. I was there earlier this afternoon, and they're about $4,000 raised, and they're a little over 5,000 right now. So
Good timing.
yeah, they're 10% funded, so they got a little ways to go.
And I can't tell when it expires, but 47 days left. So that's not bad. 3 days they got 10%. In reality's sake, listening to crowdfunding shows in the past, you really want to make it almost a 30 to 40% within 10% of your first launch window, because you always get a initial bump and then a lull, and you want to try to get as far as possible in the beginning. But I will say crowd supply is slightly different than your average crowdfunding site. Instead of just being a place where you can come and you can promote your thing and then it passes or fails, crowd supply really does have the goal to try to have ongoing support and an ongoing marketplace. So it isn't just a place where you can launch your thing, but you can continuously have it there after your campaign just for normal people to go buy.
That is different. Yeah, I like that.
Well, the only reason I know it, Rich, is from listening to Tilts, the Linux Link Tech Show, and the Purism guy who did the $3,000 overpriced laptop explained that's why he went with this service.
Saying I don't have a memory.
Well, there's a lot of shows to try to remember stuff about, you know.
Yeah, it's tough when you're on the show.
Speaking of laptops, what about that Pinebook?
Ooh, yeah.
Well,
So
I'll say there's no true updates, I'll say, but there is at least updated information. There was a YouTube video from one of the main devs. There's now an official page on pine64.org/pinebook-pro. So they're definitely gearing up. But if I listen to the video correctly, they don't expect to even have anything beginning to even ship until July, and they don't expect it to be purchasable until July. So we as end users probably wouldn't see it until August, I'm going to guess.
What? July?
So
okay,
late.
I heard some more optimistic dates, but I think you have more current information than I do.
Well, I'll say this. There's no doubt he's not going to overpromise in that video. And I don't think he was like the lead developer. I think he was just a developer. But he was showing it off, and I gotta say, if you mess with the Pinebook, I seriously don't think there's any comparison. This is like all metal. The keyboard sounds much better. The trackpad sounds much better. The processor is literally like 5 to 8 times more powerful. I think this is going to be a complete night and day kind of thing. And I honestly think they're going to have a hard time keeping these things in stock.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, listening to the company talk about the laptop, it was really good to hear that. Hey, this is something that's not going to be just like a MacBook Pro, but it'll be right next to your the Chromebook that you'll be using. But instead of having that Chrome feel to it, this is something you can have without having Google.
Yeah, and I will say he did try to like properly manage expectations with it. He didn't want to.
That's always
say it was-
important.
It is. You want to manage expectations, but um I have almost no problem in saying the battery life's going to be fine. It's not going to be fantastic. As long as they get the video running fine, again, not fantastic. I think this is going to be cheaper than your average Chromebook, yet easily have more functionality than your average Chromebook. And if you're at all comfortable with Linux, near immediately more functional, more useful, and dare I say more fun than your average Chromebook. Except, of course, no touchscreen, which some people insist on having it, some people insist on not having it. And I will say, I honestly saw like Forbes.com have 2 articles in the last month about the Pinebook Pro and how they think it's going to basically shift people's expectations of low cost laptops.
Oh, it will
I love
hugely.
it.
Yeah, I do too. I'm wondering, can you hit that $199 price point with
I
doing
think they
touch?
can. Look, they did 100. Oh, you mean touch screen?
Yeah, that's very
Mhm.
difficult.
Yeah, that's got to be another $50.
Absolutely,
All right, is the keyboard backlit?
it is not.
It is
From what
not.
I understand. Yeah.
No, guys. I have a USB bendable stalk light that I use on my Chromebook right now because the keys aren't backlit.
Right. Well, I'm also going to try to put this link in the notes here, quicker than slower. So it's going to be by the bottom of the notes here, hopefully in less than a minute. Timing is everything. You know what I mean? Timing is very important. Timing is one of the things that I think a lot of people undervalue. And what I mean is, more than a couple people are now saying, and I'll put the link in the mumble if you don't get it in time. Basically, the day of the laptop is near dead, because Lenovo announced in the last 2 days the next Lenovo ThinkPad X1, and it's basically a folding laptop. Think about ripping the screen off your laptop and then folding it like a book. And that's what Lenovo's coming out with. They're all the battery is on one side, so when you prop it up, it will actually stay in position. It will come with a separate keyboard that you can use, and it will have a kickstand that you can use. But people are saying once this thing gets out, once people see it, once people touch it, no one's going to want a laptop, quote unquote, ever again.
Dor, I am so happy you brought this up. I really am. I saw this on Instagram, and I'm looking at how this thing performs, how it unfolds and folds, and I'm like, you know what? It's not ready. I don't personally think it's ready because it just looks so gimmicky and just like what it reminds me of was it LG when they try to add bits and pieces to their software and their phones to get you to sell more phones, and it's like, you know what? Who wants that? I don't think the technology is there just yet to make this a game changer. I mean, it's a good start in the right direction. I don't think it'll move the needle. What do you guys think? Am I wrong?
I've been wrong about a lot of things. I think it's pretty cool. Again, 14 inch is really my minimum size for a device. I don't want it's a 13 inch, which I don't know if that's completely folded out. Over and you have a 9.6-inch screen. All right, so folded, you're not even netbook size. So right now it's too small, but again, if you want to keep the price down, you got to have it that size. So for the Rev 1 of the product, yeah, I think that's the right size. They're doing that right to keep the cost for the market correct. And I guess if you want to fold it out with a kickstand and use some sort of USB keyboard with a dongle, that's probably okay.
Well, I'll say I have mixed feelings. It can't be successful. It's the first, and the first of something is never successful. That's how everything works. I do think it's going to be enough to at least spark interest. And what I will say is a lot of people don't know. Lenovo has been making the IBM laptops here for I don't even know how long, maybe 6 or 8 years.
Forever.
Well, the real secret is they've actually been doing phones for longer than that. They've been doing phones for now almost 12 years. So they have smaller technology knowledge in their wings. They had the Yoga Book, which was a very thin laptop that on the keyboard was basically completely flat, and it was a Wacom tablet. We could put a piece of paper on it and draw, and it was really I hate using the word nifty, but it was really nifty. They have to do something bigger. From everything I'm hearing about folding screens, once you go too small, all the pieces are so small, and the fold mechanism, it becomes very difficult to make it solid, stable, and consistent. When you go bigger, the fold is easier to engineer, and it should last longer, better. If you notice, the bevel on this thing is gigantic, because it has to be. Is the logic. The people who touched it said when you have it completely opened up, the crease in the middle is almost unnoticeable. I hope they mean unnoticeable, and then over time, maybe almost unnoticeable. They said like the use case of having it like partially like bent and holding it like a book was uncommonly comfortable. So I can see it have a use case. It's not going to be an everyday device. It's not going to be an extreme multifunction thing that you take to a meeting and then you take here and then you take there and you work at all these different places. But I think they're on to something is what I'm going to say. I can see again in like 2 years, 3 years, them coming out with something, 3rd gen, 4th gen, and it actually being usable. And like with Rich, I'll say it's going to have to hit that 13, 14 inch size, I think, to be accepted in meeting rooms and like on the road kind of thing. Once you get into that netbook size screen, when it's like cracked and starting to fold, then it becomes, hard to actually type anything meaningful on, not have hand cramps, and easily see what's on the screen. But it's Lenovo, and I think it's cool, and I'd like to see one. I'd like to play with one. I would like to order one, play with it for 20 days, and then send it back.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, you guys familiar with the actor Vin Diesel?
Yeah, sure.
He did a movie a while back in 2008 called Babylon AD. I don't know if that was very popular, but within this movie, the only reason why I'm mentioning it is because within this movie, he plays this, uh, a greedy ex-military person, and he rescuing the girl, saving the day. But within the movie, he goes to his trunk, pulls out some arsenal, and opens up a foldable map. Now, what's cool about this map is that it's graphical, it's very data rich, but it folds up into what you a normal road size map would look like that would fit in your hand. And when you open it up, it folds up pretty decent. Something like that, I think, is the ultimate goal, which what these companies are looking for. And like Dor said, I don't think they're going to get it with the first one on the market, or even the second one on the market. I think Samsung's the first one to hit the market with these foldable screens. But I think that's the holy grail. When you can take like a map, open it up, and zoom in to that map to get a
Sure.
closer look. I think that's the ultimate goal we're
See,
going
I
for.
wouldn't go to Vin Diesel. I'd go to Earth Final Conflict because they had foldable screens.
Ah, you're right.
I was going to go to Star Trek: The Next Generation only because it sounded geekier.
Did they have foldable
Wait,
screens?
No, I don't think they
No.
did. I was just saying.
No. Earth Final Conflict is way geekier than Star Trek Next Generation.
I don't know.
'Cause-
The idea of
Because
having
nobody
jets-
remembers Earth Final Conflict.
Oh, I do. Oh, I
Yeah,
do.
but you're one of the nobody.
That was the one where they supposedly had jets sitting in a hangar for 50 years, yet the gas was still good. Yeah. John Travolta. Yeah.
I do.
No,
remember that.
not that. No,
Not that one.
Earth
What was
Final Conflict was Gene Roddenberry.
Yeah, with the Dons. Was it Don or something like that?
I can't say I saw that.
Oh, yeah.
Really?
That was really good. I'm so, I don't know. I'd like
sorry,
to see
I'm
that
sorry.
come back.
I'm a bad boy. Here's the thing. The hardware, I think, the thing about these folding screens is Samsung completely failed. I think the whole reason they asked iFixit to take down the teardown is they're literally going to basically redo everything about it. Because what they put out there was complete garbage and it failed near immediately. Huawei is launching one here within a couple months, $3,000. I think it's going to do better. You have the Motorola Razr being leaked out, which it's going to make $1,500, which again is going to might have some competition legs to it, but it almost doesn't matter. The hardware is literally only half of the equation. The other equation is how do you have the software customized for it? And what you were saying, Brian, was it didn't only sound like the hardware was sleek and smooth and functional, but the software was equally responsive to the device itself. And that's something I think difficult to code towards.
Time will tell. Only time will tell.
Well, it's going to happen. The only question is when and what is it going to look like?
By that time, I think they'll sell enough Pine Book Pros that we won't have to worry about it.
Yeah. Testify. Okay, so did you guys see anything else in the links in the notes that you wanted to talk about? Because in typical fashion, there's still, 30 more links. Okay, well, okay, I'm gonna bring one up because this is one of the things that really interested me, and it's really a Linux topic, not a mini PC specific topic, but I still bookmarked it. Line 905. I'll just say it's one of those things. I don't think they want to come out and say it, but the way I read this, and you have to be at least Linux aware for this to make any sense. So if you're not Linux aware, I'll try to keep it, easy to understand for those people. And it is one of the biggest hurdles, one of the biggest hangups, one of the biggest issues with software getting on Linux systems is the fact that there's so many different ways you can deliver software, aka different packages, different package managers, different installation methods. And we've been promised over the years that someone's going to come out with a universal, in air quotes, package manager that you literally have to write for once, code for once, package for once, and be available ubiquitously on every type of Linux available. Snap packages promise that. App images promise that. Flatpak promise that. None of them come remotely close to delivering that, is the bottom line. This is called GNU, G-U-I-X, Gwix. Version 1.0.0 released May the 2nd. And that's the way that I read what this is. But they don't call it a universal package manager, because to call it that, you will immediately be attacked from every angle saying how this will never work and you're taking the beauty away from my Debian-based distro or my RPM-based distro or whatever. But when I read this and I try to read between the lines, this is an ongoing project that they've been working on literally for years. They just this is like their 20th release that they've had, and they've just right now believe that they're making it to version 1. They're packages that can be developed once but distributed on either individual systems, environments, or containers, which again is a little bit hard to digest, but you gotta just think of it as the old promise with Java runtime, code once, run anywhere. That's what it almost sounds like this is promising. This could be the kind of thing in a year or 2 or 3. Anybody running any kind of Linux, this will be the way that you might be able to get packages on it. And if they make it, let's say, easier for other people to bring into their own distribution, this actually might take off. This actually might make it easier for when anyone says any software package, it might be easier for you to install on your distribution without having to do research into it. So I just wanted to throw it out there.
Rich, what do you think?
He thinks a lot. And the real reason
Sorry, missed my microphone button.
That's okay. And it does say towards the bottom that the systems that they're focusing towards are i686, x86-64, ARM v7, and AArch64 machines, which is not every mini computer. It's not even close to every mini computer, but it's at least some mini computers. So it might really become the case where someone installs something on Debian or Slackware or Mint or Ubuntu or CentOS or Red Hat, and if you have an ARM v7 chip, you might literally be able to install the same thing with little effort.
That sounds really cool.
Yeah, I've heard. I remember reading about something similar, Door, and well, I think was it my one of my Ubuntu machines. I heard that the snap was a little bit better than what I than what the what I can't speak what was originally and came with the OS itself, but I actually didn't dig too deep into that to really see why it was better or not. That was a good explanation.
Well, time will tell if it can achieve success, is what I'll say.
All right, Dora, I got a question for you. If you can get a product backed by Google for, I don't know, $75, would you pay $500 for a similar product from someone else?
Hold on. Say if I can get a product backed by Google.
Yep.
For how much?
$75.
$75, or I pay 5 times the amount to get it from somebody
else.
Well, I'll say this. It would have to offer me something above and beyond, because I know when I buy something from Google, they're getting value back out of me. They're getting data back out of me that they're able to at least aggregate, put into a stack, and sell to advertisers. I will say there is a tax when you don't go with Google. I don't know if it's that high, so I don't know if I'd be comfortable with that.
All right, so that's my lead-in to line 910, the Rockchip RK1808. Because you get TensorFlow from Google on a USB stick for $75, right?
I can't remember the dollar amount.
So if this thing is 5 times as good, I guess I would get it. But I'm guessing, well, I don't know. I don't want to throw them completely under the bus, but it's hard to walk away from the Google.
Yeah, I have to agree with that statement.
Well, I'll say this. There's the devil's advocate. This is just release 1. So I'll say this. Anytime anybody releases anything version 1, even like with the Teslas, the very first ones off the line always cost more, just because they had to try to recoup some initial cost.
Actually, do you know what the fastest car ever is?
Depends on how you measure it, because there's like 15 different classes. It could be McLaren, it could be oh man, I try to remember the one they had on.
Let's just say top speed ever.
Well, top speed, then it's not even going to be a car, because they have rocket cars that literally go like 300, plus 300.
I would say that, yeah.
So I know of one that goes 68,000 miles an hour right now.
Well, not propelled on its own free will.
Yeah, it's kind of coasting.
Yeah, exactly. Coasting through space. Yeah, but I'll say this. If I was not in the United States, and that's, to me, the caveat. If I'm not in the United States and I'm someplace else and I wanted to do compute-type stick things, Intel just, I believe, killed their compute stick.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
If I'm in a different country and I don't want the United States of America to have unfettered access to what I'm doing, it might be worth the money. I mean, it literally might be worth the money. Especially if I buy this knowing there's a future promise of they're going to keep innovating, keep coming out with newer sticks, and hopefully, cost less per teraflop with each revision.
So the Google USB Corral, however they want to call it, $74.95. I'm trying to compare apples to apples on it.
Well, it's not going to be easy.
Right, it may not be. I'm looking for the metrics.
Yeah, and there is a... sorry?
Not finding it.
Well, it's going to be hard to compare, because they always... I don't want to say they measure different things, but they mention different things is what I want to say. But there is more out there too. They also have the Orange Pi compute stick, and I do believe there was another one I saw maybe a week or two ago. So, I'll say this: Rockchip is a name. Rockchip has been around a while, so I feel good about the company themselves.
Yeah, I'm definitely liking Rockchip stuff.
Yeah. With that said, there was a root flaw on, I believe it was Rock ARM devices, for like a year. But who doesn't have exploits these days? I mean, literally everybody does. So to have an exploit isn't the end of the world. The question is what they do. when they find these kind of exploits. I believe Rock would be more responsive than Orange Pi people would. So if I was doing something like this, I wouldn't. I would definitely have to do a lot of like pros and cons list for each one. Me being in the US, I would probably just get the Google one because they already have everything on me anyway.
I'm not getting it, guys. I'm just I'm scratching my head. I'm like, why is this $500?
Well, look, if it's super kick-ass compared to the Corral for $75, maybe it's worth it.
I don't know. It's to me, it's like comparing apples and orangutans. It's not easy.
Yep.
So what would be the difference between this and the NVIDIA Jetson Nano?
Yeah, I guess we'd have to look at the numbers, see if we can find metrics to compare them to.
Well, I'll say this is supposed to be, these compute sticks are supposed to be secondary devices connected to main devices. So no matter what, you're still going to need to connect it to laptop, desktop, server, Raspberry Pi, something for it in order to get the work to do and then to give the work back when it's done. The Jetson Nano wants to be an all-in-one type solution.
$99.
Yeah, it is only $99. And honestly, if I remember correctly, it really didn't have what's the word I'm trying to think? It really didn't have neural computing in mind when they did the Jetson Mini, if I remember.
Oh no, I think it was built from the ground up with AI in mind.
Well, it says AI, but I'm not. It says 472 G flops. I don't know if I've heard of gigaflops.
Gigaflops.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think they pack an NPU on this chip. I think you might be right. Yeah, I don't think the Jetson Nano does not have a G. I thought it had an NPU on it.
Well, and if you're a developer doing these kinds of things, what I'll say is you'll know which one better suits your needs. There's no doubt in my mind the Jetson Nano, if it meets your needs, does it at a really fair price. I don't doubt that for a second. NVIDIA is a company that I have a lot of faith in. But I will say this Nano looks like the same thing. If I look at it right, the bottom of the board is nothing but a bunch of teeth. So it's supposed to be like a compute module as well.
Correct, yeah.
Yeah, and I'll just say this is a side side comment. On more than a couple shows, I've heard people like throw up their hands and not understand. Why are people making more of these things? Why are these things getting made? I don't understand. Where are they? Who is using these things? Why would you use these things? What I'll say is they're actually being used everywhere. Just because you don't see it doesn't mean it ain't happening. There's plenty of stuff we every day walk by and we never know what's going on the insides. And the example I'll use is the Raspberry Pi. I guarantee you, if you've never seen a Raspberry Pi, you've came within inches of touching a Raspberry Pi in the real world, because every Nintendo Switch station in every consumer store, whether it's Best Buy, Target, anyplace else, there is a Raspberry Pi in that display running. When you walk up to the Nintendo Switch display, You have the game system being displayed on a big screen. You have the controllers in front of it, and then on the bottom left, there's a little tiny touch screen that you use to like start a demo or do different things. And behind that screen is a Raspberry Pi. There's plenty of other uses where they're taking off-the-shelf hardware that don't have ILO type functionality, aka they don't have deep infrastructure inside of the hardware that lets you micromanage the device between power cycles. There's plenty of hardware being sold that now has boxes inside of it or put on the outside of it, soldered on kind of thing, welded on, and you can't see what's inside that box. And what that box is, it's an administrative console for the greater piece of hardware, whether it's a fingerprint type reader, a scanner for type of information. These kind of mini computers are actually being sold everywhere in all kinds of devices. The only way you would know it is if you had intimate hands-on knowledge of it. To expect to walk into a store and see a Raspberry Pi logo on like a gas pump is complete skullduggery. It's complete balderdash. It's complete total lack of comprehension how anything in the actual world works. When you walk up to your gas pump, it doesn't tell you what kind of hardware is inside of it. So don't expect to see things advertising that there's a Pi inside.
No, you're 100% right, Dor. I can't even count how many times I've been into IT closets, switch rooms, whatever you want to call these places where you tuck in the PCs, the racks, and the data server and the server racks and so forth for each individual company that I go into. And there's always, I wouldn't say always, more times than none, there is some small little SPC tucked away, sitting on top of a server or in a rack somewhere, serving something and doing something. I mean, these things are everywhere, and every once in a while, I'll get a chance to pick one up and look at it, and you'll see, hey, this is a Raspberry Pi, or hey, this is a what's the one we were talking about just a little while ago? I can't remember the name of it, from Hard Kernel.
O-droid or
O-droid,
Atomic
yes.
Pi?
O-droid. I've seen a lot of O-droids out in the wild too, as well. But yeah, they're everywhere. I mean, you really have to look, because if you're not looking, you'll miss it.
Well, it's interesting. One of the things VMware is talking about is using a Raspberry Pi as a witness node.
But yeah, and I'll say that's just one instance. The other instance I'll say where none of us are ever going to see these mini computers are satellites. I think the guy at NASA said 78% of everything put into space in the last year had common off-the-shelf boards in them. And the idea of CubeSats is what's taking over things being shot into space a lot of times, because they're so cheap to manufacture, so cheap to make, easy to prototype, and easy to duplicate. So they're everywhere. Just everywhere.
That makes sense.
Okay, you guys have anything extra you want to bring?
I think I'm good till next week.
Okay, hey, Rich, if people want to catch up with you, what's the simplest way?
FlyingRich.com. You can click on Contact Me if you want to send me a note. You can see all of my social media there. You can see today's show there, in fact.
And then, hey, Brian, if people want to catch up with you, how can they do that?
Yeah, they can hit me up. You know what? I need to give you that link, Dor. I'm on Instagram now. You can hit me up by typing in AskTheCableGuy, and I will be at your beck and call. Or if you wanted to send us an email over at podnutz.com, I'd be sure and happy to reply.
Yep, there's a contact form there on the website, or you can just type your email out to minipc@podnutz.com, or you can shoot us a voicemail at 7076-PODNUT. I'll say do not hesitate to drop us a line about things either we might not know about or things that I might have said wrong, because I know when I talk, something's going to come out wrong at least once in a while. I thank everyone for their support. I thank everyone for coming out to the live show. If you want to be aware of when a live show happens, you can either join us on the Mattermost server. If you shoot me an email, I can send you an invite. You can join us on Discord as well. I always try to post there when we're going live, and as always on Patreon, I try to give them at least a little bit of notice that we're going live, and then you can come hang out with us and chat live. Right now, we have Red Dwarf, Charles, and of course me and Rich in the YouTube chat. You two can hang out and basically participate in this event. Now, with that, we'll talk to everyone real soon, and hope you have a good week.